surviving Star Trek Vegas, hashtag STLV, from ground zero. My ground zero. Episode 411, can you believe it? Of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here for the first time in 2 weeks from the home of Trekland. And yes, Trekland Treks, your customized away mission somewhere across Southern California. Your decision, my guidance, my concierge leading you. What an awesome day we'll have. Ha ha ha. Yes, welcome back to Trekland Tuesdays Live here. Hopefully for a little sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. It's so good to have you back. If you're one of our veteran Trekland Tuesday livers, our TTLVers. And the thing about Comic-Con, and even more so Star Trek Las Vegas, is there is so much reporting, so much tweeting, so much posting going out on fans networks and boards, much less the legit fan media, much less even some actual legit news media, the mainstream news, that it's kind of hard to not feel like you're there. And I even found out from our friend and longtime Portale, Brandon Coles, in Eastern Kentucky, where he watched most of Strange New Vegas. Strange New Vegas. I guess it is a Strange New Vegas. It's a strange new way to see it, although off and on there have been virtual reality streams with avatars, live cams over the years. People have tried it. This year it was back. I think they had some hiccups on some of the panels, but some of them came through. Yes, I'm babbling because what else do you do? This is Tuesday. I left here a week and 4 hours ago from home to get to STLV, which, number one, went back to 5 days this week. As always at Trek Vegas, it's not just about what's on stage, it's who's in the exhibitor room, it's what's being said at the bars and in the private dinners at night, and what the fans are saying. And I say this with all kinds of respect. It's amazing how fandom has stepped up. I guess there's always been a leadership class or an aspiring. It feels like in the old days, there was a lot of earnest fan leadership and organizing. Sometimes it was more about ego than getting something done, but there's always been, out of sci-fi fandom, always been what the old fandom acronym was, SMOFs. SMOFs were secret masters of fandom, the fans that did the room parties at night that you didn't hear their names. But there were also BNFs. I guess today these would be hashtags. BNFs were big name fans, right? Like B. Joe Trimble, like Joni Winston back in the day. All the zine editors, the big time zine writers in the old early days in the 70s and 80s. And I'm proud to say I think we have a wonderful class. So much activism, Trektivism, if you will, on so many letters. A lot of the actors and creatives joining hands with fans. I mean, this is nothing new. And now we have socials, much less just the internet at large, to showcase all that. So there's so much going on. It's just exponentially grown every year. So again, if you're in with us here today, I'm going to go on just some perspectives on STLV today. Oh, and I should say too, if you're watching us later, not live, but later on YouTube, please keep it going. You can get into the conversation, leave comments, do all the stuff. Something perks your interest here. Maybe someday you can join us here at Tuesday 1-ish, he said, looking suspicious. I know. 1-ish Pacific, 4-ish Eastern, and 9-ish UK time, and 10-ish Central Europe. And I forget when, early in the morning, on the Aussies and the Kiwis and the Eastern Asian folks. So yeah, sound off here. I'm hoping a lot of you that are here today, maybe I saw over the weekend. I would say travel safe, but hopefully you got there. So a lot of folks, it's always a pleasure to see. And of course, my Portales, we always have a live dive meetup. People come by the booth if they're just here in our circles, in our communities. I have to say though, and a lot of you may have seen this coming, I saw it coming, but I still wasn't quite ready for it. This year, my own goals were twofold. One thing was dealing with creation's goal of, as people kept talking about going to 5 days, going to 5 days. Well, us veterans of at least 10 years remember when STLV went to 5 days for the 50th. 10 years ago, they expanded to 5 days and stayed there until pandemic. And then we kind of limped back live and just went back to 4 days. Well, this year, the decision was made to go 5, which means that Con Eve went from Wednesday evening to Tuesday evening, which meant that our landing party was on Tuesday evening. And overall, it was great. It was exhausting 5 days. Interesting overall take. Tuesday night, things felt very low. Wasn't sure if our generation of fandom, the last 3-4 post-COVID, post-pandemic fandom was used to the idea of 5 days. It picked up eventually, but Tuesday night, nothing really, but Tuesday night. And there was programming. Boy, Bonnie Gordon, if she couldn't explode on the scene more than she has already, really brought it home. I know she was thrilled to sing on the gala night, one night concert. So many of the stars and guests were performing. She sang duet with Anthony Rapp. I love you, Bonnie. It's just amazing to see you finally get the attention. And, she's insane as a host and cabaret singer too, but just knocking it out of the park. And, being funny and comedic and doing bits like the comedy magic. So this is my little, I said 2 words to her all weekend. So this is my love letter to Bonnie here. But she was not alone. I barely said 2 words to a lot of old friends, especially on the actor backstage side. Chiefly because, the first 2 days started off a little slow and low, but eventually, Saturday was a sellout. I think Sunday was close to one. Oh, Sunday was a sellout, and Saturday was one, if not more. So it was like a slow motion. It was a lot like some vendors were telling me from San Diego Comic-Con. Totally different mob. We've got all Star Trek all the time. There were some carve-outs this year for Space 1999. Barbara Bain. I know you're going, what? Alan Tudyk and the Resident Alien cast. Alan's line was wrapped around the block. It was the interior block. There were some little carve-outs for some sidebar series, but it's still 80-90% Star Trek, and it's the only place you're going to see that. I'm on a roll here because as the weekend started, things felt a little, not depressed as in mood. Everybody was bouncing off the walls, but it did feel lower in numbers. And then Friday that picked up, and then just as same but different San Diego, some of the dealers told me that a lot of bodies Saturday, but not so much retail sales happening. Now, maybe that was because 3 panel rooms, the big, the middle, the lounge, the main, the secondary, the DeForest Kelly, the Trexpert stage now were active. And the lounge was very active. And people were doing that. People were saying their howdies that just came in from Saturday. Apparently, Sunday was bonkers in the dealer's room. And people scooping up those last day specials. I don't know. But there were some concerns early on this year. It seemed whether people didn't get the message about 5 days or we were all braced to lose a lot of our foreign fans. Many, many, many Canadians, those 51st staters, don't get me started. A lot of them did not come on down, including my buddy Terrace. Because my big news for the weekend that we could say so far was the return of the Geek Nation tours. Woo! Exploring Trek sites, the big tour. Next year, back to the week before, Vegas. We had some indecision the way fandom had some indecision here for a while. I mean, if you can, you could even get the QR code there. Or you can just go. I need to get the links on my site now. But you can just go to geeknationtours.com. It's one of the spotlight tours at the top. We're bringing back the multi-day tour. We also got guests. We have a few more to announce. See? Boy, Bobby Clark is still in there sharing what it was like to be half of the Gorn during Arena, and some others. Love for, if you're thinking about it, start saving your pennies now and join us. We'll also have the one day out to the Valley of Fire next year. And I'm going to have Terrace on here because he didn't get to come with us to Vegas this year. He was joining in basically the sentiment of Canadians staying away. I was thrilled to see a lot of our foreign friends from the UK, from Europe, from Austria, from the UK. I said that, Germany, Australia. But I think there was a lot of depressed foreign travel. I think there was a lot of depressed numbers from the East Coast for all the reasons currently political. But it did pick up by the weekend. So just numbers wise, that was an interesting turn during the week. The Tuesday night, our landing party, I thought was a little depressed, and I was like, wow, is this the weekend going to be? I thought, you know what? Bonnie and her magician were doing their show for part of our overlap time. That was low too. I was hearing reports that everything was a little slow moving Tuesday night on Con Eve. Of course, we started the landing party when there was nothing going on aside from standing in line and vendors setting up. And just the last couple of years, they've added back. So there's that. And the numbers did pick up until, again, there was a sellout Saturday, a huge sellout for Sunday. Why Sunday? Because that was Shatner's day. It's just almost a tradition going back to the early shows in the Grand Slams in Pasadena. And the captain was there, 94, I believe. And also this year, for the first time in 9 years, Scott Bakula made an appearance. I think those 9 years have been interesting, aside from the pandemic. But, Scott's done NCIS New Orleans. He's done Men of a Certain Age. He's done some other roles, got out there. I think he's even done a show or two. And I don't think he was ever not thrilled to wear his Star Trek skin and not thrilled to be a lead captain. But I think he was still of the position where he wanted to make sure and had plenty of others. And even apart from Quantum Leap, right? And he looked in fine fettle. Now, here's the thing. I had almost like my own track this year. I will show you. So I was not, just as I was not in the room when Sir Patrick came out and melted down the interwebs and announced the Picard show way back in 2018, was it? I was not there for some of the wackiness of Scott's stage time. In fact, I missed it all. I was in because I had to be at the table because I had two other things going on that day, the way the whole weekend was. But yeah. John Billingsley crashed the line and had some foolishness. And Scott announced that, he would be back next year. And our old buddy, Mike Sussman, made some, exclusive news with Trek Movie. Tony had told me earlier on that they were going to have an exclusive story. And it's one of those stories that there's a lot of heat and fire and air. How grounded it is not. Been at a time when we're looking for news and good news. It was exciting. And that may have been one of the biggest news stories to come out of Star Trek Las Vegas, that he and Scott had been working, among other things, not Trek, exploring the idea of a Star Trek President Archer because of the bio screen that on the spur of the moment they threw into the end of Internet Darkly in the Mirror Universe, but referring back to Prime, that Archer was kind of like the George Washington. He led the armies against the Romulans or the British and was elected first Federation president in gratitude and served ably to launch the new government. It's a real George Washington corollary that was kind of cool. Totally on the fly, in the moment, as the show was being, canceled, thrown in there, and now has become, because there's a typo on that screen too, unfortunately, but now people are hanging to it, about World War III starting in 2 years. It was meant to be 47, not 27, but other story, other panel. Well, 2 years ago, during the strikes at one of the Star Trek strike theme days, Mike had told me that he was meeting with Scott. They were developing some ideas. I'd better keep my lip zipped, which I was happy to do. So apparently, with all the changes at Paramount, which happened during STLV, the final curtain, the first chapter, unveiled on Thursday of STLV while we were all in Vegas. Something to get to in a second. There's thoughts that, well, if the pipeline had shrunk down, not that the idea of my words, Star Trek West Wing, and a lot of you know that's been one of my 4 or 5 ideas I've thrown out there. I am not pitching a series, guys. I didn't get my people and my attorney and my accountant all together to go and have a meeting. I wish. I'm open to be consultants, though, Mike. Mike's been a Tellurite fan for ages. I know of whence he comes. Because my idea was to have a Star Trek West Wing, rough title, so we can finally get into all the cultures, have some politics, but oh, no, you won't miss your Starfleet action because there'd always be a crisis. The diplomats would have to work with the Starfleet people. They'd have to go solve crises. But you would also have some West Wing drama right there in San Francisco or even in Paris. And that was one of my 4 or 5. I have talked about that for at least 5 or 6 years, at least before the pandemic. And to hear that phrase thrown around, not just that Mike's idea has now gone public because we're in a weird, it's a schism time. It's like 0607, right? We're in one of those times where, or in 2017-18, when somebody got handed the keys, but there's a big unfurnished suite of offices. Who's going to fill the desks? Yeah, we're in one of those crossover times, and it was a good time to maybe go pitch it again to the incoming people coming in once we know who the incoming people are. And if any of our sitting people are going to be holdovers or not. What's the status? So it was thrilled to see my friend, my buddy back from the old days, Mike Sussman's big story. Finally, I went, well, I guess this is when they decided to break it. Yay. And there it is, splashed across all of the Star Trek websites. So who knows? Caution, caution, caveat, caveat. Just an idea, just a pitch gone public, as seems to be the era these days. Pre-social media, you didn't say anything about anything because you'd jinx it. And then when you wrote your book in 40 years, then you'd talk about it. Well, that playbook's out the window. Now you're out there campaigning for things, right? Akiva's campaigning for Star Trek Year 1 with whoever is running the show. Terry, very careful. Legacy didn't go anywhere, but Vision is going great. It was great to see Terry, hear from him and Todd. The whole shebang. Mention Legacy again, but it's got to be framed right. We don't know how big the pipeline is going to be, much less who's got their hand on the tap. So in light of all that, all these things bubbling up, and for Mike to throw in, and Mike and Scott to put his weight behind, yes, I'm interested. This is not rambling, babbling Mike Sussman out here. Yes, and we're working on other things too that have nothing to do with Trek. So there, that's how serious this is. So that was awesome to see popping up. Because the truth is, yeah, I miss seeing that in the room. I know it'll be all over the Trek news. I know Trek Movie. I know Trek Core. I know everybody will be tweeting it. It'll be out there. Some of the legit. It'll be Associated Press, maybe. All the websites that are legit news will have it, and I'll hear it from everybody. I'll hear about Shatner and his weird Leonard is in hell comment, which, it wouldn't be the first time that Shatner's been trying to be facetious, and people took it exactly the wrong way. Even our friends at Memory Alpha, something 20 years later. So there was that, there was the other thing. But here's why. If you saw my socials, this was my dance card this year. My friend Ryan, who's wound up in the driver's seat, if he can hold the stamina, he's a young guy. I know he can do it. The craziness doing dealers and talent. Maybe I should say doing talent and then dealers too, for Creation STLV. This was my dance card. A couple of them are mine. The rest were, 5 events, 4 events on the lounge stage, 5 events on the main stage. Your boy got to actually finally host and moderate on main stage. And the apex of that was not just the honor of getting to sit and guide and referee for none other than LeVar Burton and Mika Burton, but also to realize that it was their first time on stage together. It was a hoot. I hope the videos are out. I kept thinking, and I said once or twice, why do you guys not have a reality show? Why do you not have a sitcom? Oh my gosh, somebody needs to give these two a show. They were hysterical, but also heartfelt and thoughtfelt at times. Just one of the honors. But guys and gals and peeps, it was, for me personally, the busiest, craziest Las Vegas ever. There's a whole cottage industry of people sitting at my table when I'm not there, either claiming to be me, or saying, "Where's Larry?" There's a huge, I think it's subsidiary only to Where's Waldo. Where's Larry? Not that I'm a 24/7 professional dealer, right? Not that I'm all about retail. I have self-serve drawings and listing signups. But for all the ridicule, for all the ribbing that I get for not being at my table, it was half that this year. It was just the way it was. And no, this boy was in bed. The latest I was in bed was 2 one night, 1 o'clock. A couple of nights I was in bed at 12:15 after exploring all the avenues. The nightlife seemed a little down, but still, shout out to Sean for bringing back the rooftop voodoo party, even as it was the first year voodoo was even open. The outdoor stage, a party floor, indoor and outdoor has this beautiful view of Vegas from this side of the strip. It's amazing. There were a lot of traditions still coming back to STLV, and so many new people. I think let me think about this. 1 out of every 3 or 4 people I talked to said it was their first STLV. At least half of those people said it was their first big fan event ever. Not a Comic-Con, not their local little regional city con. They just make the leap and come to STLV. And it just blurred together after a while. But at least every day of the people I would talk to, hopefully new faces, at least 5, 6, 7, 8 people of the day said it was their first one. A few people said it was their second after last year. So on one hand, things feel very healthy, even with all the weirdness about travel that I was worried about, even by Americans. What it did was I found myself not between stage time and trying to lean in with seeing a lot of fans. Didn't get to see as many of our behind the scenes folks as I normally do and talk to them. So if you were watching my channels, I did some live. Of course, we did Landing Party live. You might have seen that it felt a little understaffed. And no, they weren't all down at Bonnie's magic show assistancing, or even the Roddenberrys playing. I spent more time on stage with the Roddenberrys ever before and backstage, which was a hoot. No, it was a Vegas like no other. And I say that from my perspective. Met some interesting business prospects that might come up that maybe you all will hear. Some of it's just private things, maybe a couple of publics. Very thrilled to work with different people on stage. Brian Vogt Weiss. I think we're going to do a project or two together, but just watching the debut of his action figure line, the Cells line, and how thrilled people, it's a huge seller. It's amazing that someone who comes out of TV and film and comedy specials, media, the most hardcore you could be about media was if you actually sell DVDs. To go into hard goods like action figurines, and start soft, but try to provide things no one has seen before, and start with comedians and these other franchises, land Star Trek, and now to huge acclaim. Huge acclaim. I can't wait to get my Rachel Garrett, my Trisha Neal Rachel Garrett from the Enterprise C. They've got, you saw it coming out of Comic-Con. He got to repeat it. He got to unveil the Aaron Eisenberg, he got to unveil the Nog figure here. Just so many. I got to meet our friend, Stuart Marr. Oh boy, my cherry tree. They're going to kill me. Barely by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Sunday afternoon. Did not do very many of the things I love to do with our licensees, right? With Lou and John at fan sets and all around the room. I just didn't have time to do lives with people. But I did with Martin. I did with Cherry Tree as they were shutting down, if you saw that live. But we did a couple of funky things. I've also got incredibly embarrassing but funny more video of John Billingsley on a Sunday rant, a rant for good that involved Bonnie and our friend Melissa Longo, and even me, thanks to a friend who took my camera from me. When I was videoing everybody else and got sucked in. So there's goofy stuff, but guys, gals, peeps, you're going to be seeing things in waves coming out of Vegas. Of course, what about the actors, the cast? Yeah, the panels were. It was the 30th for Voyager. They instead of having all of them sitting there and having little bits of time, they did same protocol as on the cruise. They basically split the cast in half, and you may think that's a horrible cheat, but they did an overlap session. You've seen the pictures where everybody was, and I mean everybody was on stage together. I don't mean Jerry and Kate. I mean, like, Robert's there, and yeah, Roxanne's there. Everybody was on together, and Brannon too. And Brannon sat through both half casts panels, and people love that. It was an anniversary for that. Again, Scott announcing that next year for the 25th of Enterprise, I know that he would be back 2 years in a row. No more 9-year gap on this. He's going to be there for that one. Of course, never say never. Things crazy happen, but that's the plan, and people are already excited. Enterprise continues to get so much love. Will a President Archer series do for Enterprise what? Oh, I don't know. Picard did for Next Gen? What Strange New has done for the original series? Yeah. I'm laughing. I think Next Gen and original had their own share of fans there too. So, I'm looking, and the biggest thing, and I don't know, since I had to do Maine so much this year, your boy finally got look. I have talent. Finally got over. There was Rio Creation merging like never before. Now, a few years back, the head of food and beverage at the Rio did some custom Star Trek menus at the eateries. Now, this is before the sale. It's now it's owned by private entity, but they are hiring Hyatt to manage the hotel, the room hotel. This company that owns the Rio now runs the facility space, runs the food and beverage, but the Hyatt Corporation is hired to manage the hotel. So that's who your interaction was with there. There are all kinds of, excuse my voice. I didn't realize this until the last night, and they were giving these away free, but there was a co-branded beer. See there, the Holodeck Hefeweizen. I learned my lesson back in the 90s. I'm going to poke a hole down here, drain this out, and not store the beer in the can, because 8 or 10 years from now, even in climate control, it'll misshape, and you know what beer does. But isn't that amazing? It's a co-branded beer using Creation's logo here. Gosh, a big picture, postcard letter. I wonder where that idea came from. That was awesome to see. Even more than that, in the Masquerade wing, you walk in, as I do, from the Masquerade parking, all the game machines from the Kiss Golf all the way down to Shutter's Bar, basically, to Masquerade Bar, are gone. Half of the space is folding chairs. They've installed huge view screens, movie screens. I mean, huge. Every night at 10 o'clock, they had a free showing, digital, beautiful prints of motion picture Wrath of Khan, Voyage Home. What else? The last night they had, Sunday night, they had Galaxy Quest. Free. With a drink special at Masquerade, which meant that we had to compete with V'ger when we were trying to give our prizes away for Landing Party, but it was fun. So many people wound up stopping by and sitting there. It sucked away a little bit of the crazy nervous energy from Masquerade Bar, but it was still there. It's still all good. So the hotel was working for the spirit, and not just on their own. They were coordinating a little bit, as seen with the beer. There's another, I didn't get it in here, but there's a plastic drink bottle that they were giving. But at the end, they were just putting the boxes out and letting people grab one or two or however many you could carry. So for first timers, everyone I talked to was thrilled, overwhelmed. People that I had known a while but made it to their first STLV. People that I just met fresh because it was their first STLV. Yes, we picked up a new Portal 47 member. What am I saying here? Yep. Shout out to Philip. Yes, I did some commerce. People still love the Renee Shavaria scripts. Also, I brought some goodies to the room. If you're not on my Trekland Trunk Facebook page, I've kind of restarted that. So go over and get on that. I will post things there. I may not be doing as many upfront eBay auctions because now that I'm in one place and I can actually get into boxes, I'm seeing things, and I would be 147 by the time I got things out one at a time. So we may be doing some seeing what we can do. And I would just as soon do my own and not go through an auction house, even though I know those get lots of attention and promotion and a lot of eyeballs. I think there's enough in the network and network adjacent thing could come over. So what's your shout out here? Your shout out is to go over. Your call to action, as we say in business, is to go over and subscribe on my Facebook Trekland Trunk page. I actually have a Twitter for it too. I don't know how active it'll be, but you should go over and do that. You should make sure, and if you're interested, check out the LA to Vegas. Where's my card? Where's my card? Our tour card for, good grief, I'm confused. Nana, are you confused? Yes, Nana is confused too. No, Nana's never confused. She's on a stick. They gave these away out during Mike Westmore's panel where she jumped in. They had plenty of these left over for folks. So sorry if you didn't get one. I only grabbed one. No prizes for me because that's too good to keep hold of. Yes. Your Trek Sites Hollywood to STLV, or as we hashtag it, hashtag LA to STLV. If you're interested in that, please do it. Geek Nation Tours is where you want to get to. It's just limited to 18 people. Has to be 13, can't be more than 18. We've already got at least 5 or 6 or 7 ready to go of veterans and new folks, a couple from Australia, in fact. And the parts I don't always get to, but I know it's there. For instance, there's not been a Roddenberry present, because reasons, the last couple of years, except for the Roddenberry Patreon, the Mission Log Patreon gang, who always throw a huge room party to celebrate and to thank the Roddenberry podcast hosts, of which I'm actually one. Thanks you to Trek Files. I mean, there's always a great party. They always have all kinds of fun stuff, the little cups and things this year. So shout out to Paul and Sandy, and I can't name everybody, but it was so great. This is my 3rd year, I think, to actually make it by. And I even went to the 2 days later. Nobody there had ever heard the term dead dog. Do you all know what dead dog? It's an old sci-fi lit term. It's the dead dog party was when the convention ended on Sunday and the staff is all exhausted. They're deader than a dead dog. But they have the after party just for the staff to unwind as things are being torn down and carted up, and and everybody gets to eat and relax, and then people leave after. Anyway, don't sick PETA on me, please. Don't sick the Humane Society on me. There's actually no canines were harmed in the making of this party. Okay, it's just a term, and that's not even what anybody at STLV calls. This is old school LitCon fandom. Okay, just to say that some of us, that's the idea. It's the decompress and wind down party. I think I've been a part of some of those at Las Vegas too. But just the Etsy quality, the fandom is so strong. All the new actors say that. The new dealers say that. Everybody in the world knows. The Comic-Con vendors, I say it all the time. They say it. It's the DNA of Star Trek. The Star Trek fans are the nicest fans out there. There might be a few. Doctor Who might be a close second. But yes, so the Legacy campaign shared, they had their booth. You may have seen, look at that. They had these giving away for those folks coming by their booth. Oh my God, the Sci-Fi Sisters, they all did amazing. Everybody, the fellow, Scott, Ian, I'm leaving people out, I'm sure. The moderators that were doing things. I did 4 or 5. There was still plenty of work to go around, let me tell you. Mark Altman and Darren on their Trexpert stage. I was so busy, I didn't even get to go over and hijack their guests to be my guests over the next year. There were people on the list I did not get to. Maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. And so many folks we'd had on Portal 47 who had not been out to the wide world yet, like Melinda Snodgrass, doing her first convention because years ago she got burned and put out 30, 40 years ago by stupid fandom in the 90s. She didn't realize that I had told her, hopefully I had a little bit of a chink in that, but So many folks. Rob Bowman was with us in the portal thanks to last year. And I'm going to follow up that, and I'm telling that for all the Portales, or you if you want to jump on. And I think I have this year's open house guest, which will be coming probably in October. So stay tuned for that. So much happening. But just the general quality of the Etsy stuff. One of the party favors from the Patreon party. This isn't a commercial pin, some 3D printed Lower Decks badges, right? Magnetized. The last night, Sunday night, I'm walking over to have my last go round after the Rat Pack. I need to share something with you. But shout out to the fan who gave me the glasses case with the microfiber lining so that it cleans your glasses every time you put them away. This is going to go to Janet, I think. She's already claimed it. Just the craft exchange they have an hour at least once, maybe 2 different sessions set aside for people to all go in and exchange. There's so much, the guys, gals, peeps, the amount of Star Trek creativity from the fandom ranks on it gurgles up. And if some of the vendors and licensees are paying attention, they'll adopt that. And a lot of the licensees are fanboys and girls themselves, like Martin at My Cherry Tree, like Brian at Nacelle Company, like Lou and John at Fan Sets, up and down the line. And I'm leaving people out, I know. Just so much goodwill, so much good juice from Vegas. Who was it? Somebody with some amount of position, either a new business or vendor, licensed vendor. Someone was at their first STLV. Maybe it was an actor just who is involved with other franchises, and just talking about the lack of drama just in the moment. The other thing I have to tell you about this year's, and I should have started with this, to walk in, number one, to see all those game machines gone with half of the space filled up with chairs for the theater. But the other thing, to get in elevators on Tuesday and see people that vaguely look like they weren't your normal Vegas tourists coming through, right? Because on Tuesday, the invasion hasn't happened. This year was a slow invasion. It didn't really hit a rolling boil of the Trekkies take over the Rio, and till maybe late Thursday and into Friday. The first 2 days were kind of a slow start. And so aside from the shorts wearing, Hawaiian shirt wearing, obvious tourists, there were a lot of folks that looked a little on the techie, geeky side, but not all the way Trek. Come to find out, as we say back home, come to find out, there is a convention, there's a hackers convention called DEF CON that happens in Vegas every year at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is adjacent to the old Hilton. Now it's a Westin. The old Hilton where the Experience was, further up the old school strip, right? The event is at the convention center, but there's no attached hotel except for they put their people, their staff, their main volunteers, and do the hotel deal for attendees around town. Well, this year it was at the Rio, overlapping STLV, which I don't know, may have been the reason some of STLV sold out, but also they had some real late deals on rooms at the same time. Friday and Saturday were sold out forever. But it's so odd to get in an elevator with people, and some, people are always elevators, but Trekkies jump in, especially if you're wearing your pride on your shirt somewhere, or even your pride in your Trekkie pride, whatever the spectrum is, you've got your Trek on, screamingly obvious or even subtle, a pin, whatever you're doing. And if you don't, then you kind of think, well, they're not Trek, but then again, they're still kind of, and you saw more and more. So finally, somebody would be talking, and somebody would look at me and say on Tuesday, so you're a DEF CON person? I go, no, a Trek person. They're like, what? And then they'd say, the first 3 or 4 or 5 people, there's a Trek thing going on here? And I always want to go, since 2011 at the Rio, since 2001, before that, and they look shocked and stunned. Well, I've never known that before. How did I not know that before? And I go, we've been at the Rio since 2011. Aside from 2 years of pandemic, one of them at Bally's, the Rio the first or second weekend of August since 2011. Now, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm kind of being thunderstruck myself. And they say, we've always had DEF CON the first or second weekend in August. Now, it's at the convention center or some other place. It's never been at there, but their staff and hosted rooms and everything travel around. And this year at the Rio, but it was so funny because they acted stunned. And once you got, it's not like we were secret. It wasn't like the eugenics wars by original canon. It was a secret war no one knew about. We were all in the same hotel and didn't know it. So it was just funny. But after a while, I'd get in an elevator with people I didn't recognize, so they weren't screaming Star Trek at me with their clothing. And I'd just look and say, oh, are you DEF CONing or are you trekking? And by the third and fourth day, everybody knew, and people would laugh. And it actually opened for most people. Some of those DEF CONers are a little spooky, just to say. Heaven forbid no one on the Star Trek side I would ever say the same thing about. I know, idic. But it was fun to hear about the DEF CONers who wound up spending more time over with us. In fact, one guy, we were laughing, he had kind of a neutral shirt with a secret pin Trek thing he could put on. He said, well, I'm leading 2 workshops at DEF CON, but they paid my room for 4 nights here, but I'm over here all the time. Like when I'm not over there to do my 2 workshops, I'm here, which was hysterical because, I think there's a little bit of an overlap there. Well, it turns out there's a Hackers Con in Pasadena that I may have gotten myself finagled into somehow accidentally. Anyway, such a wacky year. And I mean, listen, I say all that about DEF CON and Hacker Con. There was no, as far as I know, people are mixing at Masquerade. A lot of them wanted to watch the Trek movies that were on the big screen in that area of Masquerade. A lot of them may have walked in and gotten one-day passes on set. Some of them may have been why Sunday sold out. I don't know, or Saturday. Their thing was mostly over, and they hung around over there. There'd be a lot of overlap. But what I'm saying is, I'm laughing about the weirdness. There was no, just as there is no Star Wars, Star Trek headbanging, except in really, really desperate clickbait, right? I didn't know. And if anybody knew of this, I'd love to hear about it. For what I could tell, interactions at the Masquerade or any other bar, any other place, there was a bus stop would come at the bus pull-up place, and they had a little DEF CON shuttle bus that ran. So, they were really organized. Had a shuttle bus that would take people back and forth over to the convention center, to the LVCC. But to my knowledge, and I'd like to hear, there were no nobody was, Star Trek, DEF CON, hackers. I mean, there was nothing like that. Or, hey, this is our bar, no, it's ours. Nothing weird broke out. For one thing, the damn Star Trek people are so nice. They were like, okay, you take it. There was one time when we were checking out, and yes, Janet was with me and keeping a low profile. She had some family business to do in town, but she was keeping a low profile. And as we were taking our load of bags out to the car, and we had a pretty full elevator between her and I and our bags and a tilted thing I was doing and 2 other people, a woman and maybe her son who had a big roller themselves. The door opened, and as happened 2 times at the evening rush hour, Saturday night, Sunday night, the elevators melted down. They didn't malfunction. There were 2 working elevators out of the 4, and people were on every landing trying to get on, trying to get off, or off for the first floor. It lasted about an hour. It wasn't mechanical. It was just body overload. It was just sardine sausage overload for the system. Monday morning was not near as bad at mass checkout time. But this woman and her younger, I'm going to say son, teenager or older, opened the doors. And unlike everybody had on those insane rush hour times, this woman we opened the doors. We kind of went at her. And did that stop her? No. She just bulled ahead. And I'm sorry, I think she expected me to pull up something I had, but I had to keep it tipped sideways. And the whole way down, there was a metal plate like digging into her ankles. Sorry, it wasn't my fault. And as we got off, I remembered thinking, I bet she wasn't a Trek person. I bet that was a DEF CON person. A Trek person would never have done that. But I didn't say anything. I was just up here, right? And as they walked away, there was something Goonies or something anyway, as they walked away, her son had a Goonies tag. And I was like, yep. I mean, Iddick. I know, till we're Iddick born and Iddick bred. And when we die, we'll be Iddick dead. I know. Apologies to my Sooners. But I still couldn't help thinking, engaging, because I think if she had been there for Trek, that never would happen. She would have been one of the polite people, like everybody was doing constantly all up and down that morning. I think I want to end with this, just out of the gate. So a lot of folks, I may think of some things as we chat. Feel free to ask me about anything else. If you saw something going by in the ether, again, I wasn't everywhere doing everything. I wasn't crashing night parties more than usual. I had things to do. I had some commerce to pull off too. Made some folks very happy with additions to their collections en masse. Yay. But one thing I was curious about, and I hadn't even had time to check in with some of my best friends about it. But Wednesday, what typically happens late Sunday, as long as the Rat Pack has been the Sunday night closing show from the days when there was no closing Sunday night show and things just ended at 5 or 6. But in the last 10, 11 years, pandemic-ish, the Rat Pack has closed the show, and they always have their old favorites, and they always bring new things. And, Max writes 3/4 of those. The parodies, the really clever things. And a lot of you may know, a lot of cruise people are at Vegas. And again, I was very thrilled and honored and gratified to be a cruise guest this year for the first time. So a lot of people knew me for the first time from the cruise. Not anything I'm doing here, not from TNG Companion, not from Stellar Cartography, not from the Communicator magazine, not any of the old stuff. They knew me for the first time from the cruise. So yay, awesome. But they knew, just like people who actually were at the little mission to San Francisco Con for the second year last year, they knew that the Rat Pack played at both San Francisco, as they do at most of the regionals, and they were on the cruise. And they knew that Max Grudenchik had missed both of those. He was ill. He was down. And, and he and his wife, Corinna, he moved to Austria to live with her and be there with her family, right? So anytime he does a con anymore, he comes over from Europe. And I had been meaning to catch up and see how he was doing. And lo and behold, most of the guys come in on Saturday, and they put in a day Saturday, and then the show is that night. Of course, they have at least one rehearsal to get back in fighting shape and performing shape, much less have some signings and maybe be on a panel, right? And lo and behold, here's Max and Corinna in one of the green rooms on Wednesday. And I was so thrilled to see him. And I can tell Max was a little frailer than usual, and Corinna was right there. Anyway, we had a good talk. I was so thrilled to see him. Did a selfie, helped him with the coffee maker. It was fine. And then they did the show, and I'd seen some old friends a little earlier, and I don't know, folks. We don't know what this old world is going to do. We're all in here trekking. We're all in here slugging away to do our thing, to hopefully make sure we can do our thing next year and the year after that. We're either enjoying our fandom, or we're seeing our stars, our actor friends, or our creative writers one by one. And again, shout out to Mark and Darren and the Trexperts for finally coming up with a business model and a pitch to Adam and Gary, after I had tried to do that for years, just informally, to bring so many behind the scenes folks to that stage. So STLV is as much a pastiche as it has ever been, including the fan-powered events and the fan-powered synergy with actors and with creatives and with the licensees and merch people. So many different ways STLV has blossomed. So different than the thing that Melinda Snodgrass experienced 30 years ago that's so much better now. But I saw a couple of very good friends of mine relaxing at Masquerade after the dealer's room shut down, but before the night show. And I said, "Are you going to the Rat Pack?" And they said, "Well, we've seen it a lot of times." And there is a lot of greatest hits material they always bring back, but they always have at least a half dozen new songs, kind of reacting to the changing news around Trek, the situation, the vibe, the personalities, the situations. And I said, well, Max had to miss San Francisco, the little show, and the cruise, which is a big deal. The cruise is so great to be a part of. And I said, I'm not telling you, obviously I'm not telling you what to do, but you might want to it's free. You might want to come down and watch this one just so you can say you were there. I don't know what our crystal ball tells us for anybody, but I just had this something in my bones about people being there, and I had other things. I know, even on Sunday night, I had other things to do. The Rat Pack is the one thing. When Janet actually comes to Vegas, no matter how public or private she is, she always wants to see the Rat Pack and loves that. Or when they're doing off-bit things somewhere else, including the Voyager dock perks in I should say Casa Loma, here in California for the perks. I had to leave about 30 minutes in, but I made it a point to go down and see at least a chunk of the show. So yeah, it was good to see Max back in action, as they say in Mac the Knife. Look out, the Rat Pack is back. Boom. And it's always a fitting closer. Not counting, of course, the cabana party by the pool, by the fans. So, yeah. For me personally, I was pushing boundaries I've never pushed, gave up on other things that I usually enjoy doing. I still will. But it was very gratifying to pull off as much as I got to do on the main stage. So shout out to Ryan, who's now the talent person for creation and wrangling all that and probably having silent little nervous breakdowns dealing with all the, I would almost say, hundreds of bodies and schedules and egos and agents, all of that you have to deal with, plus the dealers. So if he's looking a little bedraggled this week on all of his shows, you might know why. And Anne Marie for doing the lounge stage by herself really this year and having a great time there and getting to bring some of whom I've had on Portal, but the lower deckers. So shout out to Duncan and Glenn. I'm going to mess up here if I don't. Jen and Cricket and Evan, and I'm leaving somebody out. Oh no. John. I think I got them all. Extras. Oh, excuse me. Background performers, because extras aren't in the union. Background performers are and have to be auditioned. So the very reason I've done what I do, the thing I love from the companion, the reason I do Portal 47, the reason we do the Trek Files, aside from being invited to do that by Rod and John, was bring these people to life and bring their stories to life for fans and to get their stories recorded and on the record. And we had a great panel. Their first time, they were like kids on Christmas morning. They were just on cloud nine. They'd done conventions before, but in very limited bits and pieces. So that was amazing. The guest stars that I got to see once again or meet for the first time. Daniel Davis, Elizabeth Dennehy, getting to meet her finally after all these years and work with them a little bit. And I'm leaving things out, I know. But just all of that was really pushing an envelope for me. I did more upper level performance hosting and also upper level commerce than ever. So if you were at Vegas and it felt like I was away from my table more than often, even on the jokey level, I was. I didn't even say much to I had Olivia next to me on one side, her first Vegas, Jeff Rector, who's done 47 million, no big loss. I say that for it was great to see so many folks. Glenn Swanson, who we had as a guest a few weeks ago, I let him get away Sunday again and still we didn't have lunch or a drink together. Just phaser me now. And so many other people. And I'm just telling you all this from my little corner of the world. Everybody's got their own, whether you're a fan or an actor or a licensee or you're a mix of all three. You're running the show with creation. had some friends who were working for creation the first time and having a blast and seeing it from their side of things. Never said hello to Gary this year. One time, a hug from Adam on the run, checking on a room availability. Anyway, crazy, crazy, crazy. It was STLV. And I just hope that, of course, the vast majority of fandom, much less the world, weren't there live. I know they had the virtual panels going, which is a big chunk of what the formal program is. But I hope also, with so many fans posting and so many folks doing lives and all of that, that everybody got a taste, live tweeting. And that includes the web press, the Trek press. And yes, that includes shame on me. I did about 3 or 4 lives. I don't think I've posted a single damn photo yet. I will be remedying that because, I think I didn't post almost a single damn picture from San Diego, including my own panel. So I'm going to be recuperating this week, and I'm going to be catching up with that. But oh no, it waits for no one. Tomorrow night we have our regular Ask Dr. Trek roundtable for the Portal members. Yes, we had our Portal 47 live dive this year that had to be more splintered than ever before because people were it was crazy. Always good to see everybody live of whatever stripe, you are. But yes, I'll be here. Hopefully, I think next week we have a guest. I know we have a guest next week. We'll be announcing that right here. But it's another pause to say as we recuperate and move ahead and head into late summer. And I know Salt Lake Salt Lake Expo, the Phoenix and Salt Lake went different directions. It's Phoenix Fan Expo and Salt Lake Fan X, right? That's happening. New York Comic Con will be around the corner in October. I know the studio treats that as semi-whatever. I'll leave you with this. I lied because I didn't do a full show on this. A lot of folks are worried about what the Ellison. A year ago, we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. Of all the options, the best thing for Paramount and Star Trek. Now people are not so sure because of all the political with 60 Minutes and the FCC, which should not be a political process, but who made it a political process. Just to get the damn thing done, and people are worrying about, Paramount must lose its DEI mantra, its procedures and all of that. And Ellison being a corporate mogul. Well, David Ellison, the son, went to film school and was going to be a producer and an actor. And after 2 or 3 movies he made that were okay, that had other legit actors, one of them fairly notable, he decided that he should get over his own ego and not pretend he was going to go into acting. He should just stick with producing and getting other people out to look good, tell great stories. And I have a glimmer that if he had that much self-awareness and insight, even 10, 15 years ago, that he's not going to go quite off the deep end as some people are worried about here, that he's just trying to get shit done so he can get stuff done. And then once he's got the keys, he can go. And I'm not saying this is an absolution. I'm not looking at a crystal ball. I'm just saying that as I know people are worried about what this means for Star Trek. And I'm just going to say I've talked to licensees getting the trickle-down effect. And the way they've had to been writing this whole thing about who's going to be in charge and when does it change and kind of treading water until the change happens. Things are frozen. It's frustrating fans. People want to know where the movie is. People wondering about Alex's contract renewal, futures for the series. We've been talking about this for months. It went from will Sherry sell to Ellison to when will the world be allowed to resume its normal flow. The vibe I got, as a parting shot here, the vibe I got was so far so good, that people who are on the extreme end of the worry spectrum may not be so worrisome. Someone I trust very much with his own slant and investment in Star Trek and other things said that Ellison coming in may be the best thing ever for them. And no, I'm not talking about someone who wears a red hat 24/7. I'm talking about somebody who is a fan, has a company, and wants to keep Star Trek Star Trek. And their initial assessment is not from sitting in rooms with David Ellison, but from the people, the trickle down of the different departments, right? that are happening. Everything from TV and motion picture and streaming to licensing to promotion. The whole corporate structure is that Star Trek's going to be okay. Now, how big will the pipeline be? We'll see. But Star Trek won't go away, and it won't fundamentally not be Star Trek to our worst fears. Like, well, if it has to stay Star Trek to be Star Trek and has to go away for 10 years to save it, then we're up with that. We'd rather do that than have something that we don't recognize with Star Trek slapped on it. So far, so good. It's just going to take a while for all the new people to finally get into place. Apparently, there's another round of cuts coming across the board that, everything from sports with CBS News and all that. If you watch those headlines, and I'm now subscribing to Puck and some of their media folks keeping up with their Matthew Baloney, or Bellany, whatever. There's another round of layoffs coming still. So we'll see who survives. But we will see what happens. The layoffs, you're going to hear about that too, but that's happening across the industry as they try to figure out what the hell media and entertainment looks like and how we deliver it and how we receive it coming forward. That's all still up in the air no matter what the politics are. Politics will filter that, of course. But yeah. So there's still a few little T's to cross and I's to dot. So don't expect any kind of independent streak if that's the eventual goal right now from Skydance and Paramount's merger. They may want to even buy up some more companies that fit the brand. So that's still to watch out for. So it's all things for us to be talking about. Meanwhile, we've got Strange New Worlds wrapping up. I've got a new second opinion out that we actually did before in a vacuum before STLV. So it would be right on time over the weekend. Hope you take a look at that. So I'm going to take a drink. We will take a break here. If you're watching us live, hang on. But for all of you watching us later here on YouTube, thank you so much for finding your way here. Please like and subscribe. Do all the things, would you please? Okay. And of course, just to note to say, I appreciate you coming just as much as I appreciate all of our Patreon folk. Love it when you can help out like they have. Our TTL club this month is, yes, thank you so much, Chuck A., who I got to meet and see his awesome booth, his collectibles he's selling. Yeah, he deals in. So thank you so much for all these years, Chuck A., for being a Patreon, as well as James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Halbeard Gunn Johnson, Lawrence Todd, Chris Jiggins, Justin Ware, Andrew Jazimski, Josh Patton, Pranikasha Productions, Saw You Too, and the Cello, Keith Rombeck, Comedy Forecast, and yep, our live wires, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Brandon Coles, Dan Leckie, Dave Gregory, saw Dave, Chris Garris, of course saw Chris, and Casey Shafsky, saw Casey too. So good to see a lot of you live, but thank you so much for everything happening month to month with my modest little Patreon. How modest? Well, here's how modest. It's $5 or $10 a month. Patreon.com/TreklandLive. $5 gets you the shout out, $10. Now that we're through con season, I will fix the interview, the Portal 47 early archives, and get those to everybody. Fine, I understand the original links I was sending weren't working. We will fix that and finally get everybody caught up, all right? Thank you so much to our Patreons for helping monetize this. Again, YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you can monetize me a little bit, a buck or two here with a super chat. That's awesome, and it helps so much. Every little bit helps. And, yes, we're on hiatus for the Trek Files. We finished up season 13 was such a boom. If you haven't had a chance to go look at it, thetrekfiles.com. You can find it on any podcast platform, iTunes, Libsyn, on down the line. But you can find the doc and the synopsis and the player right there on thetrekfiles.com, our Memory Alpha page, with the hot links back into Memory Alpha right there handy for you. You can scroll the whole thing with the document. And, of course, if you want the community for Trek Files, I mentioned the Patreon party. You can join the entire Roddenberry Mission Log Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Their Patreon. Go to Patreon, just look at Mission Log. You'll get there. $1 a month gets you access to all of their live shows, plus the message boards and communities. And that includes now the Trek Files and on my live show with them for a couple of hours every other Monday, which we actually did Monday last week. So not today, but a week from today, I'll be back with Trekophiles Tonight, spelled with an F. So join in the Roddenberry again, $1 a month. You get that. Plus you get access to all the Roddenberry shows, groups and support, and a lot of fans who are running live shows that have a little community quite apart from that, adjacent things. It's a lot of fun. It's a huge, huge community for $1 a month over at patreon.com. Yeah, hopefully you can afford 5 with me and $1 with Roddenberry and get the best of both worlds without the danger of assimilation. Other than that, gang, if you're leaving us here on YouTube, thanks. It's Larry Nemecek on Blue Sky and Twitter X. Larry's Trekland on Facebook and Instagram especially. Don't let the uglies take over Instagram, right? Let's keep our pretty pictures going and our fandom happiness, our fandom uplift. Portal47.net. Yep, I got a new member this weekend. I've got to do the drawing. A lot of folks in the drawing this weekend for 2 free months. Maybe if I do it near you, you can get in that too, or just check it out at portal47.net. We'd love to have you in the Backstage Pass all year long. There's no post-con depression. We've got a mini-con all year long with portal47.net. So having said all that, folks, I saw some alerts about some of the spikes and some of the things. No one's dying of COVID, but it's still out there. So please just, stay happy, stay well, do all the things. And boy, stay woke, check the sources, and trek well, everybody.